All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a nice weekend. Just going to kind of take a quick glance at price action today. I got a couple things I wanted to point out that I thought were kind of interesting discoveries that I figured out as I was digging into some charts this morning. But before we get into all that, the usual disclaimers. I wanted to first remind everyone to follow my Twitch channel so that you can get alerts and also so that you can comment in the chat. One of these days we're gonna have a chat. People are gonna comment in it, and it'll be cool. um, I also noticed that my last video got more views on YouTube than on Twitch, which kind of took me by surprise. But if YouTube is your jam, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're at it, and click the bell to get alerts, like they say. I hate saying all that stuff, but the algorithms. And then lastly, follow my Telegram channel for, again, alerts, because that's where all the alerts are. And if you go to any one of these three places, you should be, you know, fully alerted. So that's what we're after. All right, anyway, with that, let's get started. So a few things today. Let's see. I want to first look at something interesting. Hold on, let me turn on Bollinger Bands. Bollinger Bands. Okay, I noticed that I saw the Bollinger Bands were getting pretty tight here, and I was like, well, how tight? How tight are they? So I loaded up the all-time history index on Bitcoin here, and then this indicator down here is basically the same thing as the Bollinger Bands, except it's just one line instead of two. And what this line represents is basically just the spread between the two bands, the gap. So if we just kind of zoom in on this indicator by itself and go all the way back to the very beginning. So this is Bitcoin's entire history in weekly Bollinger Bands. And if you look at it, you'll see that right now, this week, starting today, the Bollinger Bands on the weekly level for Bitcoin are tighter than they've ever been in the entirety of Bitcoin's history. That's pretty noteworthy. That's significant. It just means that volatility is pretty much at all-time lows to a large degree. One could also say that that means we're well overdue for a big move. Who knows which direction, to the upside or the downside? I don't know, but a couple other things that I've observed that sort of fall in line with this too, um, that kind of have me thinking. Let's get rid of, or no, let's turn this on, turn this off. All right, so let's look at this. What this is the VPVR, or visual range volume profile. And this basically is just an indication of trading volume that has happened at various price levels in the range that's literally visible on the chart that we're looking at right now. So visible range being this range right here, volume profile. And if we look at that, it's going back quite a ways. I mean, more than a year. So a good chunk of history here. We can see that we've got a pretty big spike right here that it looks like could be providing some level of resistance. We know 30K is just going to be a strong level of resistance anyway. It's a big psychological number. There's been tons of trading activity over the years at this level that is just going to kind of hold it here. And then on the downside, we've got this support level that's been holding at 29,250 now, and I'll kind of get into this more on the daily here in a second. But what I'm seeing is, if price can break out of here, say, for example, it does break to the upside, given those tight Bollinger Bands that we have. Turn these back on here. Tight Bollinger Bands. If it does decide it wants to break up to the upside, it's got a lot of room to run here. There's a huge gap, and really what this means is there's been just very little trading activity in this range for quite some time. There's just not a lot to like hit resistance or support on. Not really until we get up to this kind of level here that I had noted. I made this line based on monthly candle bodies. I'm not going to toggle over to that, but basically just know that I took the monthly candle bodies from right here. That's what I drew this line based on. So I think we will run into some resistance at this, 35K level, 34, 450, somewhere in there. But, if it can break through that, it's just got a lot of room to run, basically all the way up until this next chunk of volume here at 38. So this would help sort of fuel a pretty good run to the upside, I think. That would sort of be commensurate with these tight bands and a breakout that would come from these tight bands, and it would also correspond with this trend line we've got here. So it all kind of makes sense on some level. The only thing I can't tell you is where that catalyst is going to come from. I have no idea. I mean, I think if we bring liquidity into the mix here, and let's get rid of this volume profile for now, just to kind of clean up this chart, it's not looking good. There's no liquidity coming into the system typically, or really, if anything, it looks like it's sort of going out. So again, I don't know where it's going to come from, but if it does break to the upside, there are indications that it could, realistically punch up into the high 30s just based on those two indicators that I just pointed out here. I also wanted to look at this on the daily because it's kind of interesting too. Let me get rid of this liquidity guy here. Um, it's really holding this level well for some days, and it's always interesting to me when it does that. There's clearly people wanting to both buy and sell at this level, but and it's interesting too because I drew this line like weeks and weeks ago, and it has continued to be the support level, more so than this kind of silly diagonal line I drew. But um, I just think that. I think that's interesting. So I'm thinking, break up to the upside, hopefully, but we'll see. I did want to kind of come over and take a look at it from a cycles perspective too. So one thing I'm seeing here is we're now, let's just kind of zoom in on this daily. So we're a ways into the cycle. We're at day 46. If you look at the last couple of cycles, I mean, they've ended pretty early. They haven't gone to a full 60 days or longer. The last one ended at day 52. The one before that ended at day 45. So and then we peaked on, I think it was day 28, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 28. So we could be really looking at the end of the cycle coming up soon. And that would also sort of go in line with the idea that we're due for a breakout with those tight Bollinger Bands and with that volume profile that I saw. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get another, 2 weeks worth of sideways price action. We could be seeing a breakout come this week, even sometime. We could also see a breakout coming this week, well to the downside too. I don't know, but if you look at the liquidity chart, it would say that. But if you ignore that and just kind of look at everything else, there's an argument to be made for it to go to the upside as well. But I do think it's interesting that based on these last two cycles being generally shorter, which isn't terribly uncommon for cycles early in the Fourier cycle for 60 days, or rather 60-day cycles early in the Fourier cycle. So yeah, maybe we're coming to the end here. Maybe this week could be a big movement week. I know we do have some economic data coming out this week, so I don't know. Maybe. I mean, stuff has been Bitcoin's relatively decoupled from that lately, but I don't know. You never know. A few other things kind of quick. I just wanted to point it out. I've been noticing optimism has continued to put in green days on the daily, and it has caught my eye. Like if you look over here, most of the stuff is in the red, but optimism is in the green. So I kind of wanted to look at this chart and just point out one thing that I'm seeing. Yes, it's generally in an uptrend against USD on the daily. Yes, it's generally in an uptrend against Bitcoin on the weekly. Well, sort of, at least. I don't know, technically not an uptrend. It's basically right back where it was at the yearly open for Bitcoin. So, if you'd have bought this way back in January, you'd have just as much Bitcoin as when you started. And if you'll notice too, it kind of came up and touched off this 20 week moving average and has since bounced off of it. I mean, granted, it's only Monday, and so we're only like one day into the week, so to speak. But so far, this isn't a trend reversal. This is still just a mean reversion coming back to the center of these Bollinger Bands. And so um, don't, again, my point that I kind of drive home a lot is don't put too much stock into a bunch of green days in a row on the USD value of some of these alts, because really you need to pay attention to what it's doing against Bitcoin in the larger grand scheme of things. And right now, all we have is a mean reversion on the weekly time frame, which isn't anything. Certainly not reason enough to buy in with a big allocation of optimism to ride out through the next cycle. So just kind of keep that perspective in mind and don't get too crazy with that. Um, what else? Let's see. I kind of wanted to touch on Doge for a second, just because it keeps coming up in the news. There was Elon's tweet on Friday about big announcement coming, whatever that means. I don't know if it has anything to do with Doge. Nobody actually does. Um, but you know, I was just kind of looking at this and I was like, well, okay, say there's, you know, the big announcement. Say that he does decide to integrate Doge into Twitter or X or whatever the hell it is now, and make it sort of the online payment system for that. What could happen, you know? And if we kind of look at these other big peaks or big runs that it had way back when, granted these were well in perfect timing with like the a big bull run, bull phase, you know, late or early in that 21 cycle rather. Geez, I can't talk. But you know, could it come up and form a new all-time high in the event that he integrates this? And I don't know. It's certainly plausible. It is interesting, you know, how far it can go just with one candle, one weekly candle like that, and it really only has to get up to this range up in here, which is kind of less than half of this overall move that it did. Yeah, I know there's not nearly as many participants in the space right now as there was when all of this happened. And I know retail is generally kind of, you know, crypto's not on their radar right now. But I think Doge is a little bit different. Doge is kind of one of those things that not no coiners still sort of think about and tend to hold. I can't tell you how many people I've encountered in the last, you know, 6 months who are just like, yeah, I don't know anything about crypto, but like I bought a little bit of Doge back then, or I bought a little Shiba back then, or something like that, and I'm still holding on to it. And it makes me nuts when I hear that. But it's funny with that. You know, people kind of come out of the woodworks, I think, with stuff like this with Elon. It's sort of its own unique animal. And so um, yeah, I don't know. Is it plausible? Sure. It's certainly a thing. It would be kind of cool if it did, but I, again, who knows? Who cares? Kind of one other thing I wanted to point out real quick, going back to my other sort of thesis about where's price going to go, um, is I was looking at funding rates earlier today, and I noticed that funding rates are actually trending upwards, meaning really what this means is that the people that are buying Bitcoin futures and things like that are betting to the upside. They're betting they're bullish. So the people that are going hard into leverage think Bitcoin is going to go up, and so it's always interesting to kind of see what the you know what the gamblers think and what the leverage people think, and they don't think that downside is happening right now. So I did want to kind of point that out too. Um, I don't know what else. That really might be it. Like I said, it's going to be kind of a short one today. It's just I'm you know it's Monday. I'm going to wait until the week plays out. Um, but what I've laid out here, I think, is just a case for we could be coming into a timing window where you know we could end an abbreviated 60-day cycle. Everything is tight. Everything is wound up. You know, Bollinger Band's tight. It's in a coil, and something's ready to spring. And so I don't think it's going to take much of a catalyst, whether it's a news event, whether it's an Elon tweet, whether it's a liquidity injection, whether it's a big bank failure or something like that, to really kind of just rocket price to the upside. And hopefully there's not a catalyst that comes in that kind of pushes it to the downside. Though if there was, well, let's take a look at that. If there was, what would that mean exactly, and where do I think it would go? Well, the next support level I think is going to be down around this range, around 24.5. That's pretty clean and obvious. Um, so that would likely be where it would bounce from. Possibly it could bounce off this 200-week moving average too, which could be interesting. That would actually be cool if it held that as support, because it did blow through it after historically that being like the support level, you know, for years and years. We had this, you know, in the bear market last year, it kind of blew through it. It took forever to kind of recover it again. So it would be cool if we did get a big negative catalyst and it came down and, you know, reestablished this 200-week moving average as support. I think that would be constructive. And then outside of that, you know, overall, it's funny, these moving averages, if we zoom in, they haven't crossed over yet. You know, the green, the 10 week is still above the 20 week. Let's look at this here. So that's this indicator here. This is just, oops. This is basically just a big zoom in of the divergence between these two moving indicators, moving averages rather. And you can see that it did actually, it got almost down to crossover and then it kind of peaked back up again so far this week. So so far momentum is still technically to the upside. And all of this just kind of is interesting. None of it really is meaning anything one way or the other, but it's all things that I'm just kind of sticking in the back of my mind and using it to see what happens. So yeah, there we have it. Pretty simple, pretty easy start to the week. Not much going on. Bitcoin has barely moved. Pretty much everything has barely moved. So we'll just sort of see how the rest of the week plays out. I might have a guest coming on Wednesday. It might be a different guest this time. I'm sure James will be back on soon with different things, but we might have another guest from my pro crypto community come on and talk about some charts with me. So be on the lookout for that. And then yeah, and then a Friday wrap up too. So again, happy Monday, everybody. And we'll see you again on Wednesday. All right, thanks for watching.